Welcome to Sino-Warfare with Ralph D. Sawyer. Theory and analysis are important, but eventually someone has to actually undertake the intelligence mission. Until recent decades, when the nature of state enemies dramatically changed, the penchant in Great Britain and the United States had been to recruit well-educated members of the upper classes on the assumption they have the necessary substance and will easily mix with important officials and powerful individuals in other, primarily Western countries. James Bond apart, Cold War experience destroyed the myth of innate upper-class character and showed the limitations of highly visible agents in alien environments. Considerable time had to pass in China before it was recognized that straight-laced Confucian officials and other members of the literati class, while valuable for diplomatic missions with collateral information-gathering assignments, were glaringly out of place among military forces, bandit gangs, peasant movements, and of course foreign peoples. Even then it was muted, and largely an offshoot of the recognized need for a variety of military skills. Early on, intelligence missions were almost exclusively undertaken by government officials or members of the intelligentsia, such as Zigong, who was dispatched by Confucius himself to sow dissension in order to extricate the state of Lu from certain obliteration. Only accomplished worthies like Yanzi were sufficiently versed in the proper forms of behavior to evaluate character and to detect duplicity during diplomatic discussions with powerful officials and rulers. Warring states' peripatetic persuaders were similarly sophisticated speakers who ostensibly proffered strategic advice, but harbored pernicious intent. Now, the art of war says little about the qualifications required to be a spy, except for local spies and local guides, whose role can be filled by anyone with detailed regional knowledge. The others, internal, double, expendable, and living, presumably have some sort of government connection. Certainly, the two early exemplars, Yi Yin and the Taigong, did. However, warring states and Han Dynasty historical writings indicate that a variety of people were actually employed, including merchants and traders, former prisoners, slaves, and defectors. But their employment wasn't reflected in the theoretical discussions, which caught up slowly. Now, the sort of people who might be used as internal spies and estrangement agents were readily identified by their corruptibility. However, experienced commanders such as Li Jing and Hua Yue warned about overly relying upon them. In an oft-quoted statement, Li Jing remarked, "I once prepared a discussion of spycraft, and at the end stated, 'Water can float a boat, but it can also overturn the boat. Some use spies to be successful. Others, relying on spies, are overturned and defeated.'" Hua Yue pointed out a couple of other issues apart from incompetence when he said, "Now, some spies simply watch the way the winds blow and transmit falsehoods, while others may suffer persecution and divulge your affairs to the enemy. These are intimately related to being overturned and defeated. Therefore, agents can be employed, but cannot be exclusively relied upon. Employing them is wise. Rely upon them, stupid." Now, even in late Qing, questions about reliability loomed. In decrying the administration's failure to adequately fund spy activities, Zhu Fengjia commented, "The men who act as spies today aren't reliable. They merely listen to rumors and select doubtful affairs. Their travels don't amount to much more than just going across the border. What they hear is nothing more than what they can get from their acquaintances, so the real situation can't be learned." It was also widely recognized that the skills required for military activities, including spycraft, are paradoxically inimical to their employment. Men of good moral character must act contrary to moral inclination, be crafty, deceitful, and false in both their identity and actions, and deliberately destroy individuals and wantonly subvert states. These and other more heinous actions invariably draw the condemnation of the righteous, whether truly motivated or merely hypocritical Confucians. Thus, in his 100 Tactical Terms, Jie Xuan says, quote, "The military is not a good affair. The talents that are advantageous are exactly those that can harm it. The martial must kill, the courageous must hate, the wise must be deceitful, and strategists must exercise forbearance. The military cannot cast aside the martial, courageous, wise, or strategists, so it cannot abandon hatred, killing, deceit, and forbearance. The classic military writings, including the Wuzi, discuss the importance of selecting men for military roles based upon their physical and emotional qualifications. Powerful warring states aristocrats sought to retain strong men, thieves, and others against possible need, men who could, for example, imitate the sound of a rooster crowing. However, it wasn't until the Sung dynasty that Shudong advocated recruiting men of every conceivable talent, however despicable, and employing them appropriately. Ironically, he was writing at a time when spies were badly needed to penetrate the north, portions of which had already been lost to the Khitan and Jurchen and increasingly Mongol incursions, yet saw the use of spies largely ignored in favor of ordinary reports forwarded by officials who had little incentive to identify trouble. Now, Xu pointed out the selection method emphasized the civil skills of literature and disputation, and thus automatically excluded men with martial talent and the courage to undertake dangerous missions. Some of his numerous concrete recommendations include activities that fall within the purview of intelligence, even echo those specified in the 6 secret teachings. Quote, "The fluent and loquacious should be employed to work as spies. Those good at filching things like rats and snatching things like dogs should be dispatched to steal the enemy's signals and investigate the enemy. Those who speak foully and curse a lot should be employed to slander, deprecate, and undermine the enemy. Those who speak about portents and fabricate sayings, who excel at elucidating the mind of heavenly ghosts and spirits, and at invoking the mandate of heaven, they should be employed to raise a ruckus, to delude the masses, and thus move the enemy's hearts. Those who use unorthodox language and loquacious discourse, who can inflate the vacuous and amplify greatness, should be employed to shake and flourish the army's awesomeness and virtue. Those whose ears and eyes are perceptive and sensitive, who can clandestinely investigate the enemy's true situation, should be employed to watch for villainy and artifice." Subsequently, the Southern Song Cuiwei Beizheng Lu advocated ferreting out men uniquely qualified to serve as spies and military professionals. Even in highly abbreviated form, Huayue's dramatic flair is visible. Quote, "When the penultimate day arrives, somewhere in the ordinary world, there will certainly be eminent talents and outstanding fellows. However, their dreams have not yet taken form because they dwell among the poor and lonely, amid the common culture of the villages and lanes, or they are hidden among farmers, merchants, husbandrymen, physicians, and prognosticators. Can you catch them through the examination system? They don't excel at the Confucian compositions needed to pass. Can you entice them with profits and salary? They don't follow official routes to eminence. May they be found among the staff in military camps. They weren't born among the fortifications and formations." Huayue goes on to identify 8 different groups of mostly undistinguished people. They include descendants of former officials and commanders, but also, quote, "criminals whose talents and spirit surpass other men, who carelessly offended the laws entailing corporal punishment." Now, a second chapter, "Bravos Make Spies," not only narrows the focus, but also points out the danger that frustrated men of talent can pose. Quote, "When officers with heroic qualities are brought into the court or employed in the field, they can become loyal ministers and righteous warriors. But if they're left in the wilds or abandoned to mountain forests, they may become rebels and brigands. If we get them, we can realize the achievements of emperors and kings, while if the enemy gets them, they are capable of supplying effective, perverse plans." Now, although women were employed as early as the Shah to mesmerize the powerful, and Confucius himself was dissuaded from remaining in Lu after the ruler was distracted by a double set of female musicians deliberately set just for that purpose. These are all variations of the famous Meirongji, the ploy of beautiful women. Their use for intelligence gathering and other clandestine operations was never explicitly discussed until the perspicacious Xie raised it in his 100 tactical terms. And, of course, it also numbers as one of the 36 stratagems in the Qing dynasty work of the same name. His definition for women states, "Those who are able to act as intimate agents are women." Now, in explication, he writes, "The great generals of antiquity sometimes relied on the pliancy of women. To realize opportunities, respond to tactical changes, overcome difficulty, and extricate forces from danger, they are always advantageous." Many of the ancient strategists relied upon female pliancy, even though it was not something that great generals were inclined to esteem. However, when a commanding general employs people, it's like a physician prescribing medicine. Medicinal potions blend every sort of ingredient, animal, mineral, and vegetable. Nothing is ever neglected. Since male villains and bravados are accepted in the army, how much more so should those who can penetrate deep secrets, search out hidden ambushes, or act skillfully as secret agents? How can you not concentrate on collecting and nurturing them in order to prepare against some unexpected need to dispatch them as part of your strategy? Now, a little more is prominently said about the role of women in this regard, even in the well-known historical compilation Lianuzhuan, Records of Women, though the pernicious effects of femme fatales are portrayed. Nevertheless, women were systematically employed for covert purposes, often against their will, and female royal family members were coerced into marrying powerful external leaders, as much for the information that could be gathered by visiting missions as the supposed amelioration of tension. Needless to say, court intrigue often turned upon their effectiveness. Although troubled by these and other issues, China's military thinkers envisioned a solution in the techniques of control, which will be the subject of our 8th and final talk on spies and intelligence in historic China. Thank you for watching.